Dear chess friends, the TCEC Season 24 Superfinal between the two top engines, Stockfish 15 and Leela LCZero, is really heating up. We are halfway through. More than 50 rounds have been played. After 50 rounds, Stockfish now in the lead, has now 1 point more than Leela LCZero. Still 49 rounds have to be played in the Superfinal, so still Leela has some chances to get back into the game. So let's see now one game. In my opinion, this is really incredible what happened. I've never seen such a thing before in chess, that one rook is holding 3 minor pieces. So we'll see here in epic, really immortal Zugzwang position played by Stockfish against Leela LCZero, in which the pieces couldn't really move. The position was so paralyzed. I've never really seen a position like this before, so pay good attention in my opinion. Sick, brutal chess. Again, chess from another dimension. So let's see now what happens. Stockfish with the white pieces opened with move d4. Leela's response was knight to f6, c4, c5, the Benoni, d5, e5 leads now into the so-called Czech Benoni. After knight to c3, d6, e4, we're having now this solid structure, this blocked out pawn structure in the center of the board. And one thing has to be noticed here immediately. We have now this pawn chains. You see white has a light square pawn chain, black has a dark square pawn chain, which means that this is now a complex of pawns on particular squares, which also means that some of these pieces are not good. For instance, in black's position, of course, when we watch now this d6, c5, e5 pawn chain, it means that, of course, the dark square bishop is not a good piece because it's blocked out by its own pawns. On the other hand, of course, the light square bishop is good because it has breathing space, it has some decent activity. But also when we watch now white structure, it seems so that, of course, the white light square bishop is a bad piece because it's simply also blocked out by its own pawn chain. On the other hand, the dark square bishop is much better. Knight in this types of blocked out pawn structure, I think they should be evaluated the same like the bishops, because it doesn't even matter if you continue this game maybe in this blocked out pawn structure with your knights on the board, because the position is simply too paralyzed, too blocked out in the center. So I don't think that the bishops are so important in the continuation of the game. So in the game, bishop to e7, we have knight to f3, knight to d7, bishop to e2, castling, and now a6, which is a normal Benoni move to get expansion here on the around the square b5. But it's a long run. I think this whole b5 concept in this types of structure doesn't bring you anything. You probably not get the move b5 because in some lines white can prevent it with the move a4. I think the more natural idea here for black is to go maybe into some lines with g6, knight to e8, knight to g7, and then push the pawn on f5. This is a solid maneuver that I would recommend you, for instance, if you choose to play the Czech Benoni, going into more King's Indian structure than Benoni structures. I think we should really evaluate this position more than the King's Indian than maybe a Benoni defense, because in the Benoni defense you many times trade off the e pawn for the d pawn. Then of course after c takes d5 we would have really an asymmetrical pawn structure. Now I think okay, a6 is a good idea, but you probably, as I said, not get the b5 goal. So in the game, king to h1, and Stockfish is saying here, you never play g6, you never rerouted the knight, you never played on the king side. I'm going to play on the king side because you refuse to play on the king side. Now look at this, what Stockfish is doing. Stockfish plays a plan that has never been seen before. Look at this, after move b6, Stockfish plays rook to g1 and is hoping now to get the g4 goal, and maybe then afterwards g5, because suddenly it makes sense what Stockfish is doing, because notice that the bishop on e2 is targeting towards the king side. We have the knight on f3, the bishop is targeting the g5 square. Maybe in some lines the knight can be also rerouted, I don't know, knight to e2, knight to g3, but with the move g1, white is obviously preparing the move g4. So we have now the move h5, and this is, in my opinion, the first really inaccuracy here by Leela LCZero. In my opinion, a better way to go is here maybe to get the move rook to e8, again maybe the knight on f8, and then maybe even get your knight on g6, maybe then afterwards get the knight on f4. This would be, I think, also a solid position. Weakening the pawn structure in front of the king is actually already risky, because I think white has a much better activity here on the king side. So now you're already creating structural weaknesses for the king. Stockfish uses now this moment, plays now g3, has also opportunities maybe to reroute the knight on h4 and then on f5. g6, Leela prevents this idea, it's not allowing some hops on f5. We have a4, and you see now there's simply no counterplay anymore on the queen side. On the queen side, nothing can happen, I think, here for white. White has a great control of the b5 square. Everything is protecting this b5, so it's a long run. Maybe you can prepare it somehow, but I would not recommend you. You lose, I think 10 moves or 20 moves just in order to make a b5 move, which really doesn't make sense. So knight to h7, rook to g2, another brilliant move by Stockfish. Stockfish is trying now to clear the first rank and maybe get also this other rook on the g file. So you see Stockfish produces really already wild ideas. King to g7, queen to c2, rook to h7, knight to e1. First of all, rerouting the knight on d3, then afterwards maybe f3, f4 are now opportunities then for white. h4, we have g takes h4. Stockfish clarifies now the g file, is of course having now great attacking chances on this file. Bishop to h4, queen to d2, very nice idea. The threat is queen to h6, bishop to f6, queen to h6 anyway, and now after king to h8, knight to d3, Stockfish is also preparing now the move f4, which is very important. As we said, we have a decent activity, we have the g file attack, and now this other rook can be also included into the game. So bishop to g7, queen to e3, we have f5, and Stockfish plays now f4. If you don't play it, of course, then by black would actually the move f4 probably will be played, and then you have strategic disadvantages. Black has advantage in space, so this is not working, so that's why f4 a must move here for Stockfish. So queen to e8, e takes f5, g takes f5, again more and more the g file gets open. Queen to h3, knight to f6, maybe even in some lines in threatening the queen on h3, bishop to d2, and now e4. We have knight to f2, and now comes one of the critical moments of the games. Here Leela C0 makes a huge decision. Leela plays the risky e3, sacrificing a pawn just in order to liberate further squares and simplify the game by trading off the queens. And Stockfish welcomes this idea. Maybe a better way to go is to compete on the g file, but even if that happens, I think again white is faster. Rook to g1, maybe rook to f7, and now again with some blocking ideas, knight to d1, knight to e3. This knight would create a beautiful blockade, and then again you would have a beautiful attacking formation. So after move knight to f2, as we said, e3, queen to e3, queen takes e3, and now bishop to e3. We have rook to e7, bishop to d2, bishop to d7, rook from a to g1, attacking now the bishop here on the g file, and now after rook to e8, now comes really a beautiful move, bishop to d3. Notice everything is so far in a good shape here for Stockfish. Stockfish, he's having now decent activity. The only piece that I think is a little bit bad is of course the bishop here on d2, which is paralyzed, which is blocked out by its own pawn structure. Now here Leela plays an interesting idea, knight to h5. Protecting the bishop on g7 further, because what Leela is trying to do is play much more freely with the rooks on the e file. Of course the bishop is endangered, the rook is a little bit stuck to the defense of the bishop on g7. So we have now the move b3, bishop to c8, and now comes a stunning move here by Stockfish. I'm not sure how many of us would even consider this move. I'm not sure how many of us would even, I don't know, somehow play this move, even I don't know, calculate this move. I'm not sure if I, as I said, really would even consider in any of these lines to play this move. Stockfish plays the beautiful knight to e2, sacrificing two minor pieces for the rook. We have to say it's a sacrifice, because in many positions it's not so good to give up your two minor pieces for one rook. But when you do that, be careful what kind of a position do we have here. I think if the queens would be on the board, imagine now this position with the queen somewhere on the board, then I think it would be much riskier even to give up two minor pieces for the rook, because with the queen and two minor pieces, I think you're much better than against the queen and against the rook. So now when the queens are off the board, it's not so dangerous, because the game is going more and more into an endgame stage, and when that happens, then of course the rooks are perfectly fine in a potential endgame. So it's risky, but not so risky that you will probably lose the game, but still This is an awesome idea here by Stockfish. Knight to e2, sacrificing 2 minor pieces for the rook, but now this is the beautiful idea. Bishop to c3, attacking further the g7 square. If you pick up, of course, the bishop on the c3, you get checkmated here immediately. Really, really wild stuff. After move bishop to c3, Leela went with rook to e7, bishop to g7, rook to g7, rook to g7, and after knight to g7, we have now reached the fully endgame stage. And how to play now this game? Look at this. Still, in my opinion, it seems that this was risky what Stockfish is doing, reaching this position. I wasn't really sure how to win this game. How would you proceed here? Of course, the first obvious move is rook to e1, occupying the e file. We're trying to get the rook on the 7th rank and then try to attack all of the pawns that are on the 6th rank. And the cool part for white is, of course, is that the king is too far away from the action. The king will have to play 2, 3, 4, 5 moves in order just to get some kind of an activity. So here, knight to f6, we have rook to e7, bishop to d7. Leela is trying desperately now to lock the 7th rank, not allowing this rook to get behind the pawns. We have knight to d3, bishop to e8. For instance, if you play knight to h5, look what happens. Then we have this stunner. This is also a tactic that should be considered. This wasn't played in the game, so knight to h5 was not the move by Leela, but this move never should be underestimated. Look at this, d takes e5, then f takes e5, kicks away the knight, will pick up the bishop. We have two centralized pawns now that are storming, so it's game over here for black. So after move knight to d3, Leela plays the move bishop to e8, but now of course it liberates the 7th rank, and now this is the position that we wanted to get. We're attacking now all of these weaknesses, all of these pawns on the 6th rank. So knight to d7, protect king to g2, king to h7, knight to c1, knight gets on a better square. Stockfish reroutes the knight in a beautiful way. King to f6, king to h3, a5, we have king to h4, king to g6, and now a rook to h7. And see now, suddenly more and more black is gaining sort of a Zugzwang position. The Zugzwang is of course a position in which you have to play a move, and actually the next move that you have to play is a bad move. So you're forced to play a move. That's the issue here. Stockfish is staying so far with the rook on the 7th rank, and the minor pieces of blacks don't have good squares. This is really wild, because the only move that you can play is now, the only good move is the move knight to h5. For instance, if you play knight to f6 here, then rook to b7 is again attacking the pawn. So after move knight to h5, we have rook to e8 attacking the bishop. Again, Leela is playing knight to f6, and you see now, so far nothing wrong. Everything is glued together. Everything is compact. The knight is protecting the knight on d7. The knight is also protecting the bishop on e8. The bishop in e8 is protecting the knight on d7. So far everything is fine. But Stockfish plays another brilliant move. Knight to g3 continues to pressure here black in the continuation. Look at this. This knight is now paralyzed. It cannot move. The only piece that you can move is of course bishop to f7. If you play something like king to g7, then we'll play knight to f5. We will simply take out this pawn. So you see, you have to play bishop to f7. Now comes rook to d8. Again, a Zugzwang move. Again, you have to play with the bishop. You don't have any better chances. Now after move bishop to e8, now comes the calm, brilliant, again beautiful Zugzwang move h3, and you don't have any more moves. If you play now bishop to f7 again, then we have this one. This is the stunner. Knight to h5, after knight to h5, rook to d7, and this is the position that we wanted to get. So as I said, this rook was so massive here. It controlled basically 3 minor pieces. That's the beautiful Zugzwang position that I've talked about in the beginning. Look at this. Of course, it is with the support of the king and the knight, but this is really brilliant. So Stockfish paralyzed 3 minor pieces with this rook on d8. As I said, let's see again the sequence that wasn't played in the game. Knight to h5, knight to h5, rook to d7, and this is now completely winning. We'll pick up this pawn, so it's devastating here for black. h3, calm move, forcing Zugzwang move, forcing black now to make a move. King to f7 had to be played, and now we pick up this lousy pawn here on f5. Really wild stuff. Beautiful immortal endgame technique here by Stockfish. Knight to e4, now comes king to g4, king to g6, now comes this knight into the game in a beautiful way. King to f7, knight to e7, we have knight to f6, king gets on f3. After a couple of checks, also Leela grab now another pawn. But this is now the brilliant part. Knight to d6. Again, great tactics here by Stockfish, because you get the king here on e7, but now we first pick up the bishop on e8. You don't have time to pick up, of course, here the rook will simply take out the knight, and now with these two passers, also this third passer, we have to say it's game over here for black. So after move knight to e8, we have knight to e8. Now the rook gets behind the pawn on b6, and we are continuing now with the rook against two knights, and that's, I think, the position that we wanted to get, because the knights are slow pieces. They're not long range pieces. They can only jump always two squares on one side of the board, so they need 3-4 moves just in order to be activated. The rook is going all over the board, and with these two extra pawns, this is now, as I said, completely winning for white. Knight to d6, we have h4, knight to f5, Stockfish grabs now this one. Here we have a check by Leela. Leela grabs now also this pawn on h4, but now rook to h6 is also attacking this weakness. Now we have the knight to g2, Stockfish simply took the pawn, gets again with the king in the center. Here a couple of checks have been played by Leela c0, but nothing spectacular. No more checks are possible. Stockfish continues now the game with 3 pawns and a rook against 2 knights. Obviously a lost game for black. Knight to d6, Stockfish pushed the pawn further. We have king to c3. After a couple of checks again, Stockfish gets the king here on the edge of the board, and now after a couple more moves, we have the promotion of the queen, and after this moves, black got checkmated with the move rook to h8. So brilliant game. I'm not sure if you are really impressed by these games like I am. I am really impressed by this. This is really incredible how Stockfish is performing here, how Stockfish paralyzed here these pieces. This was, in my opinion, such a beautiful moment of the game. h3, look at this. The rook is holding 3 minor pieces. The king is active. The knight is attacking the pawn on f5. Really an immortal chess game here, played by Stockfish against Leela c0 in the TCEC Season 24 Superfinal. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more immortal chess games like this, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link of our whole playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.